First 45 minutes done and dusted, and it's Manchester City 1, Newcastle United 0. Here to dig into all that action, we have got three brilliant guests beside me. Steph, let's get right into it. Great first 45 minutes for City.
Yeah, I think in terms of the start that they wanted, I think the controlled possession. I think we were obviously wondering where Phil Foden was going to play, but to be honest, he's probably been City's best player. I think he's got that little bit of a free role just in front of their back four, and he's linking up with Haaland. But yeah, I think City will be really proud of what they've done this first 45 minutes.
From a Newcastle perspective, Shola, what do you think they'll make of that kind of first half?
Yeah, I think obviously you expect the fast start from City, which they had. I thought Newcastle weathered that well, started to grow into the game. I think for me, we've been a bit sloppy. I think certainly in that midfield area, there's been a lot of loose passes, which we haven't been accustomed to in recent sort of history. So obviously it's the pressure that Man City put on you, but I think we could have taken care of the ball a lot better, and we've created a couple of chances. I think we haven't really got in behind. I think, like we said pre-game, I think using Isak's and Anthony Gordon's pace, we haven't really seen that in that first half, and haven't really caused too many problems for Man City. But listen, it was a great strike by Alvarez. Again, look at Phil Foden. The influence that he had on that first half was immense, and obviously got into a space and managed to play Alvarez. But I think apart from that, the goal, I think it's been quite an even game. I think certainly in the second half, Newcastle's still in it, but they have to, get on the ball and keep possession further up the pitch so they can make things happen.
Steve, we were speaking about maybe that Newcastle might have been coming into this in slightly better kind of a position, given a bit of a longer pre-season, of course, as well. We know City's still getting up to speed a little bit, but you look at that first 45 minutes, and it does seem that City kind of are at where they need to be at.
Yeah, it's been I would say relatively even first half. I think City did shade it. I think they started the better of the two teams. Newcastle did have a period when they kind of controlled play. Then Man City got their period of play. That's when they scored the goal. I think the big difference and what's causing problems is, we've mentioned it's Phil Foden. He's in that pocket and he's playing along the line. He's going on the left-hand side, the right-hand side. He's just in front of Newcastle's back four, but behind Newcastle's midfield, and it causes problems. It causes problems for a defender, because the defender wants a midfield player to come in to pick him up. Midfielder doesn't want to drop that far, because the midfield player's thinking, well, there's 2 years there. You've only got one to mark. One of you's go and get him, and that causes a little bit of indecisiveness. But the goal's a good goal. It's a good strike. I'd sort of said to Shola, would Pope not be a little bit disappointed with it? But he hits it with pace, and it's kind of gone past him pretty quickly. But yeah, just looking at the both sides, as I said, relatively even. But I would say City have shaded it, and that's why they're 1-0 up.
It was a touch of magic from Julian Alvarez. We've seen him pull out some finishes, Steph, but that was so instinctual. Again, it feels like one of those, you can't really train that. That's just something that he's got in his locker, and he's done all his time in Argentina and now here.
No, I'm really pleased for him. I think we just said in the studio before, it's that every time he plays, he seems to score and contribute, and that was another great finish to put it top corner. But it was great work by Kovacic to find Phil. Phil just playing that ball on the edge of the box, and to finish against a great keeper like Nick Pope. The stadium's bouncing, but yeah, I think, see what the boys have said, I think it has been quite even, but I think tactically from Pep Guardiola, I think we've caused Newcastle a problem with the likes of Kyle Walker on that right hand side. I think we don't really play that wide, and I think Newcastle probably presuming that'll be Phil that's hugging the touchline, but Rodri's just able to find him all the time, so that's worked really well for us down the right hand side. But look, I think this second half is going to be still probably a close game. Obviously we know how much strength and depth there is in both squads, so I'm sure Eddie Howe probably maybe mixed up a little bit.
When we're looking at it from a Newcastle perspective, you said, Shola, especially towards the end of that second half, they started to creep into that final third a bit more. A few blocks, big one from Diaz. So what would just be maybe a slight tweak to try and use that pace a little bit more, as you said, and maybe get a few more shots on target?
Yeah, I think certainly for me, I think our midfield three have been too close together. I think what makes us good is when we're passing between the lines, and I think having them all on the same line, we don't get that movement. And I think if a couple of times we did get forward, we got in between a little bit like what Man City are doing to us. Asking questions of defenders so that you can create the third man running, and that's certainly a big strength of ours. Sucking a defender in so the third man can go. And obviously we had a chance there towards the end with Anthony Gordon, poor touch, but more plays like that. And I think having the right distances between our three midfielders really helps us create those opportunities
and get further up the pitch.
Yeah.
Steve, it was a great battle last season, but Haaland, couple of chances, one at the end just crept past the post, but I don't know, you've probably been watching the battle with him and Newcastle's two centre-halves, Dan Burn in particular. They're both going for it, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I mean, when you get players like this, sometimes it's just, if I was playing against somebody that was quite aggressive up front, we basically sort of say from the start, listen, how do you want to play this? Are we going to go and play football, or are we just going to be at each other all afternoon? Because it's just like, really, the game is secondary, if you know what I mean. It's because you're just having your personal battle and you just want to win that battle. But of course it's the strength and trying to get past. Obviously, as you said, Haaland did have a shot. When you look at it in slow motion, it kind of comes off his ankle, doesn't hit it great, and it just goes past, I think it goes past through Botman's legs and just past the post. But I think players, when you're with that kind of makeup, you love a tussle sometimes. And you want to get one up on your centre half or your centre forward and feel as though, because Haaland would be going in, whilst he hasn't been brilliant that first half, he's thinking, my team's 1-0 up and I'm winning my battle, even though he's got either Burn or Shaw or Botman to up against, he'll feel as though he's winning them battles.
Yeah.
I was going to say what the end game is for Haaland is he'll want to score, but ultimately if he stays like this, he's won his battle because his team's won.
I think it's the cumulative effect that he has. The power and that wears defenders down. As a striker, as the game goes on, if you keep on having those battles, you'll get your chance. And he knows the likes of Kovacic and Phil Foden, they're going to find him. And so the more he can sort of use his physicality against defenders, it wears him down. You see him score goal after goal towards the end of games, and that's why. He's put the work in, and I think that's another thing that he does so well, uses his physicality throughout the game so that he can get the fruits of his labours, at the back end.
At the back end, absolutely. We're just trying to bring you, remember, at the start of the show, we were looking at one of our favourite goals from last season at home here at the Etihad. Of course, we've been here 20 years now, and many happy memories made, many brilliant goals scored. So we focused on last season. You had 4 to choose from on Twitter, and the winner with a vote of 36% was none other than the big man himself, Erling Haaland. He did take it for this goal that he did in the Champions League. We were talking about this. It's quite the acrobatic finish, Steph. I mean, the ball as well. It kind of was the double whammy.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think to be against Dortmund as well, to score that type of goal and to get his leg that high is just kind of, I mean, this probably kind of set the precedent for the rest of the season, was with goals like that. But unbelievable ball by Cancelo. I think he's probably one of the only people in the world that can pass to the outside of his foot with such great pace after one step.
I think you look at that goal, and I think it doesn't surprise me that's one, because 99.9% of people couldn't do that. And I think that's why, you add the ball in there as well. It's just a fabulous goal.
I'm going to go with John Stones because I think that's an easy goal. It's a little bit of agility. I normally do that every Tuesday when I'm training with my mates. It's an easy one. It's the John Stones one. That's
yoga, Steve, as well. You've got that flexibility. Looking towards the second half, then, Steve. What do you think would be being said in the Newcastle dressing room?
I think a little bit, as Shola's kind of touched on it, the need to be getting the game, and the Newcastle need to be getting a bit more forward, because really they haven't threatened. Yeah, they've had possession, it's looked nice, but they haven't gone anywhere. There was one ball flashed across, which nobody kind of took a chance on. There was Gordon, which he takes a bad touch. But really, apart from that, that's it. It's been quite comfortable. I don't think Edison has had a save, if he has at all. the need to put more pressure on Manchester City's back four. But at the same time, Manchester City, Pep will be just sort of saying to them, you know, yes, we will have to soak up some pressure, but when we do get it, can we counter-attack and can we put some pressure on them?
Shola, and also if we're looking at the Newcastle bench, who would be a player maybe you'd earmark that could possibly come on and maybe add something to the game or help Newcastle kind of maybe?
Yeah, you know, obviously the first one's Callum. Obviously he's a goal scorer, and he will make those runs. And I think also you look at Harvey Barnes, you know, you look at that ball that was flashed across early on in the game. You know, those are the type of balls that he thrives on. You know, getting on the end, on the back post. So we've certainly got quality on the bench, and those two would be probably the two that I would, you know, think the manager would be thinking about bringing on, because ultimately, you know, we need to put pressure on them, and you know, the back, and like you say, the fact that we haven't, I don't think he's had a save to make, Edison. You know, that's what will probably disappoint the manager more than anything.
Yes.
We've had possession, but we haven't really done much with it.
And from a City perspective, Steph, we can say we need a couple of players warming up. We won't be out in too long, but a solid first half. Do you think Pep would be making any tweaks or much of the same?
No, I think he'll be quite happy with how the lads have performed in the first half. Of course, he's a perfectionist, so I'm sure he'll be having some things to say, but especially with them little through balls to Haaland, can there be a little bit more perfect for him to get on the end of it and maybe get him involved in the game a little bit more, especially with Grealish. Maybe his decision making could be a little bit better, but overall I think to have that first 45 and be 1-0 up, I think you'd be pretty happy.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. We are going to be back at full time, hopefully talking about a Manchester City win. It is that way at the moment. It's Man City 1, Newcastle 0. 45 minutes to play and then we'll be back at full time. Alistair Mann and Andy Morrison have got commentary on the official Manchester City app, so it's back over to them and I'll see you at full time.
Thank you, Kel. City 1-0 up. And to be truthful, they have been so good here at the Etihad that there is always that extra sense of anticipation. You know, they've won 21 of their last 23 games played at the Etihad in the Premier League.